So today I'm talking about hands. Now, it might well feel that I'm throwing an awful lot at you, but the reason for that is because when you're giving a presentation, you might stop speaking, but your hands never do. After your face, your hands are the most expressive part of your body, arguably more so, depending on the size of the room that you're talking to. So first off, you need to make sure that your gestures are expansive. This is good for both you and your audience. Now, I will be doing another video about posture, and I'll be doing another one about confidence. But just for now, just bear in mind, you need to take up the space, you need to raise the elbows. You need to basically show your audience that you recognize your own value and show that you're worth it. Because that way you'll be giving yourself confidence when you're presenting, and that way your audience will have confidence in you. So that out of the way, public speaking, if nothing else, is a performance. So you've got to make sure your gestures are expressive. Okay, so show those hands, show to your audience that they're open. You're basically indicating you're not concealing any weapons, so they can relax and focus on you. Open body language, exposing the vulnerable parts of your body. These are all trust indicators. And if you show these to your audience, they're going to trust you. You've got a deeper connection with them, which means that firstly, they're going to remember what you're saying much better, maybe twice as much as if you're just standing like this. And also, they're much more likely to go along with whatever it is you're arguing. So these are all really crucial. But what you've got to remember is your gestures need to be purposeful. They need to match what you're saying. You might well have seen politicians on TV who've clearly been through media training, and their arms are shooting off in all sorts of directions, like some, crazy Thunderbird, and it's just really distracting. So you definitely don't want to do that. So where do we start? This one you might well do instinctively, which is great. You're already halfway there. Is when you're stating a fact or you're giving your opinion, almost give a giving gesture to your audience, just like this. That way, it sounds silly, but the audience is much more likely to take that on board and remember it if the gestures are congruent. Another one which might well be instinctive, a little bit corny, is just touching your heart, just really briefly. It makes you come across as more credible, more sincere. You might well do it unconsciously, but do keep that in mind, because just doing that has a subliminal effect on your audience, builds up that bond. Another one, when you're giving a strong opinion, just a bit of a chopping gesture at your audience. It just locks that particular point you're making in their head. Now this one you want to use sparingly, because as you can imagine, and as the camera's sort of showing, it can almost be a bit of an aggressive gesture. You don't want to do that. That negativity would obviously turn off your audience. So really useful just using it sparingly. Another one you don't want to use too much is this one, palms down. This indicates authority. So if you try and make a point and you want your audience to go along with it, their compliance rate shoots up. But you don't want to do this too much, because at the same time it's quite an oppressive gesture, and it also makes the speaker look quite stressed. So you don't want to be doing that. In terms of, I guess, a default, if you're wondering, I'm talking for 20 minutes, what I'm going to do with my hands 20 minutes. If you need a default, this is really the best thing you can do. It's that openness I'm talking about, palms up, showing that your hands are empty. That's great. Personally, I don't find that hugely comfortable, so I tend to steeple. You can steeple to the front, you can steeple up. This denotes confidence and wisdom and all sorts of good things you want when you're standing in front of a room full of people. Again, you see politicians do that an awful lot. Another gesture that's really useful, there will be times perhaps when you're talking to an audience and you're getting the sense that maybe you're losing their attention a little bit. You want to get it back, but you don't want to do it in an aggressive way, of course. So this is when you get out your magic needle, and that's your magic needle. And I know it sounds crazy, but when you're making a point and you want to bring your audience back to you, just show them. You can swap hands, it's very versatile. Show them this needle. I know it sounds crazy and I'm doing it in a slightly exaggerated way just for the purpose of this video, but if you're not convinced, do it in front of the mirror. It can look very natural. And if you do that during a presentation, you'll find that your audience are right back with you. So don't forget to pack your magic needle. In terms of gestures to avoid, now the number one has got to be pointing at your audience. Again, I'm in your space, it's a little bit threatening. So you do that, and it's got quite an authoritarian air, and it means that the compliance of your audience with whatever it is you're arguing, it just goes right down. Studies have shown. Now, of course, there are times in your presentation when you probably do want to point, like when you're taking questions. So a couple of alternatives that work. The first one is it's almost like the giving gesture, a bit of a wave, a bit of an open-handed indication. That's great. I mean, I think it's a little bit vague, and of course, there's also a possibility it might be perceived as a little bit aggressive as well. So far better than that is pointing with your thumb like this. Keep your palm up. You can almost open your hand at the end to make it more of a give and take gesture, collaboration. This works really well. You see a lot of politicians doing it, a lot of so-called thought leaders doing it. So that's a really handy one, rather than that. Something else to avoid is any sort of clasping. This shows anxiety. It's a self-soothing action, and when your audience see you doing this, they'll perceive that you're stressed, and then they'll get stressed, and everything falls apart. So really avoid that. Equally, don't fold your arms, don't hug yourself. When an audience sees somebody folding their arms, bizarrely, their cortisol levels, their stress levels go right up, and it means that their retention levels, they're paying attention to whatever you're saying, remembering that, just plummets. So really avoid any this sort of thing. Lastly, the thing you want to avoid, and I'm guilty of this myself, is touching your face. Because if you're touching your face, there's this subliminal suggestion that you're trying to hide your face, which means you're not being trustworthy. So just bear in mind, if in any situation you can't see somebody's face, they're probably a deeply untrustworthy person. So I hope you found that handy.